Hi, I'm Laura Nickerson, one of the Aura VSDS trainers, and if you're watching this video, some things went wrong in the training. I apologize for that, but I hope to walk you through the parts that you may have missed so that you can still get the full experience of the Google Summit. We're going to start from the beginning, and you can move forward to the section that perhaps the call dropped, or you can come back to this later in case you want to review some of the things we went over today. Here's the address to my Padlet again up at the top here if you want to join in on this wall, or if you'd like to go to our notes section, it's up on the screen here. You can pause the video for a second to get everybody back to the notes if needed. And don't forget, there's our QR, which is kind of what this whole video is about. This is QR codes, iPads, and using Google for relative content reading. As I told you before, I'm a biology and anatomy teacher in Klamath Falls, Oregon at Mazama High School. And I have one set of class iPads in my 9th through 12th classroom that I use almost every day. And one of the things that I think is most effective is using them to read about science. I don't check out a textbook anymore. Our textbooks are over 10 years old, and sometimes that's just too old. So let's start from the beginning here on what I'm doing with this in class. I am doing this with the iPads because I want my students to read current science articles, current science information, and sometimes even scientific journals. And this is what I found to be the easiest and most effective way to get students to read and write about science that's happening right now. So we're going to go through the steps that get us to the final product. And I encourage you to join in today and pause if necessary and come back later if you need some of these references. The first thing you want to decide is what unit are you doing. So I actually picked a unit that I'm doing this next week, which is on the properties of water and how some things in chemistry affect things in biology. And so this unit that I'm sharing with you today is on properties of water. And I'm actually going to use this as my introduction to water instead of a closing to kind of get them excited about it. The first thing I need to do is I need to find an exciting video. There are a lot of places online to find videos, but one of the best places for science is Science Friday. I'm sure that every subject area has one place where like, oh, these are great videos, whether it's TED Ed or YouTube or even Khan Academy. I don't think Khan Academy would work great for this because you want something that's really going to catch students' attention and it's going to be up to date. And I think Khan is a little bit more for, review and a little more mastering of skills. So I find articles on Science Friday, and I happen to see this article about how some scientists were able to tie water. And so Science Friday had this. I saw it on my app that I get for Science Friday on my iPad. I knew I had to find it, so I went to Science Friday and watched it, and then I went even further and I found it on YouTube. So I'm going to play just a couple bits of this. I'm going to talk over the top of it, but you can kind of get the idea so you know how we're structuring a lesson.
Physicists report that they've tied water in a knot. This is what it looks like, and
as far as we know, this is the first time that a vortex knot has been made in a fluid in the laboratory.
A vortex knot is the fancier cousin of one of these.
Where do they go? The smoke rings I blow each night.
So usually when I pick a video, I try to pick a video that's just about 3 to 5 minutes long. It needs to be, the rules I set for myself is it has to be within the last year, something that's happened in science. And then it needs to be something that I think will pique the student's interest about a subject. I don't limit myself to saying that it has to be exactly about the same thing as the subject. Instead, I try to leave it open. But though you get the main idea here, which is that scientists have been able to tie some knots in water.
Knots and more complicated
jump
shapes.
Forward here a little bit, and you can see how it's pretty cool. I mean, you don't have to be a science teacher to think this is pretty awesome. And they've been able to take these shapes and mold them onto some forms and be able to tie some knots. So I'll jump forward to some of those forms. So you get the main idea. So once I found a video that I think is going to pique their interest, that's what I start with. And we'll watch that video in class, and then right afterwards, I don't really answer any questions. I say, all right, we need to know more about water before you can actually come up with a question that's probably going to be a question that's appropriate for what this is about. So then it's time to have them read about it and ask these questions that they had in their head through the reading. There are also lots of different places to get information about any subject area. I like how stuff works because it's simple, it's clear-cut, and it has nice extensions that can go in my class. But you'll see when I show you my examples that I've pulled from all over the place. I pull from scientific journals, and I pull from newspapers, and all over the place. This just happens to be the one I'm using today. This is a site in How Stuff Works all about water. It's got several pages. I'm going to point them first to the page about the properties of water because that's kind of what relates to this tying of the knots in the water, and then we're going to move forward from there. So I have a video. I have my content reading that I'm going to have them use. Now I need to put it together in a format that's going to be iPad friendly, and it's also going to push the kids to both read and write. So let's go back to our Padlet here. There are several different ways to create QR codes. And the reason we're going to create a QR code today is because the easiest way to get students from one place to another on the internet with iPads or most devices we're going to have in the classrooms is going to be a QR code. I'm sure you've all sat through something where the kids go up to the top and they type, and they make one letter mistake and they are going to the wrong place or can't be found, and the frustration levels rise, and it takes you 15 minutes to get ready to the right site. With QR codes, that's not the case. They're going to all go to the right site, they're going to go there quickly, and they're going to get on to the task that you want them to get on. So let's talk about making a QR code. At this point, I'm going to take us over to the notes sheet that goes with our document here, and I'm going to bring it up so that you can take a look at the things that I'm going to run you through. This is a printable note sheet. If you'd like to have it for later or to use on your own, feel free to make a copy of it and take my picture off and put your name on it and call it your own. That's no problem. So if you don't know anything about QR codes stand for Quick Response, and they originated with Toyota, and they use them kind of as a tracking system for parts and trucks and cars within their warehouses and factories. And it's since taken over the world, and people use them all the time, and teachers really are starting to use them a lot. Once you start, you won't stop because you realize how many things you can do with this and how quicker it makes transitions in your classroom. On the iPads, the QR codes are going to be created by me, then they're going to be posted in my classroom either on paper or projected onto my front projection unit. So going through here, I wanted to show you first a couple examples of how I use QR codes besides with my scientific reading worksheets. I have the scientific reading worksheet here, which we're going to come back to actually last. And first I'm going to talk about my biology warm-ups. So we start class each day with the projection unit up on the board, and it looks like my QR code's not loading. Let me see if I can find it's loading. There we go. And oftentimes I have something that I want the students to work on right off the bat. And so with a QR code, they can come in, they are going to get started on a topic. It helps make the transition of picking up their iPads and getting focused much quicker because they're not waiting for me to talk and at the same time messing around with the iPad and taking selfie portraits and everything else. So just a simple, basically it's PowerPoint. I use Google Presentations, but putting the QR code up in there nice and big so my whole class can scan it and get started as the bell rings. So this is an example of an opener for my class. I also use it all over my classroom. I'm trying to reinforce to the students that this is how we're going to get information is with these QR codes. So I no longer post my grades on class. I just have a QR code up that they can access with their phones or with the iPads. It takes them to our login site at our district for them to check their grades. When we do labs in our classroom, I try to videotape the very first period that I do the lab and any examples or procedures that they need to make sure they follow and safety stuff. And then I quickly load that up to YouTube, make a QR code, and I post it in the lab so that students during the labs and the later periods, or maybe even that period if I can get it done, if they need a reference, they can go check it out. This has been most useful for when students missed the lab and they're coming in on their own time to make it up, and I've got a classroom full of kids trying to get help. I can say, go watch the video, come back, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and then you can start on the lab. And that's been a good reference. And once I did it for the first time, I've got them built up for several years now, so now I only have to do one anytime I'm breaking out a new lab. We do use a Google a Day challenge on Fridays to get the kids to practice better search skills, and I think that's important. If they're going to use the iPads, they need to know how to search even without the QR code. I'm also a volleyball coach, and I use QR codes on my volleyball roster to help direct our fans to our website and to our Facebook page. And there's been a lot of fans that have really said they appreciate that because they can get to more detailed biographies about our players online or check out our stats for the season and view our record, and it's all at the tip of their fingers with their phone. I try to make my contact information available to the students with QR codes for my Facebook and Twitter feed, so they can just scan it and that information takes them right to it on their phones. And then finally, I have a lot of worksheets that I throw a QR code in, and it says if you like this and you want to check out something more, take a look. If you need a reminder on how to do this, take a look. Want to see some practice problems on like Khan Academy, take a look. So as you guys know, there's lots of different uses for QR codes. So let's take it back to making our QR code. To make a QR code, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of free and paying options online. I've made a short list here under the yellow column of the ones that I think are the best. And these are all free, except for the very last one that gives you some free and then you have to pay for more. The two at the top, Bitly and Google, I hope you've heard before, these are actually URL shorteners. So it takes a really long URL like this and makes it much smaller and more manageable. Anytime you're going to create a QR code, it's good practice to at the same time create a short URL. So if a student does not have access to a camera to read the QR code, they can still access the online location you wanted to get to with the short URL. So I'm going to take you real quick to both of these sites, but notice underneath here there's also a couple other ones that I've given you that are more exciting, like maybe put it in a photo or arrange it in a different way and do other things like create a text message or a contact. The first two are just basically going to be a URL shortener into a QR code. So let me go to Bitly first. Bitly is free. You create a free account, and once you're inside your account, you are making QR codes and it's storing them for you. One of the advantages to Bitly is that you can customize the part of the URL that's after Bitly. So for example here, this is a form that I use in my class after each of my lectures that I check kids' understanding. They complete on their iPads. And I have Mazama High School check for understanding. And after about the third time they can remember this, I don't even have to post it. They know how to get to it on their phone or on their iPad if they don't have the QR code available. So it's pretty simple. I'm going to make a quick short URL. I'll go ahead and use our notes for this. So I'm going to copy those notes. URL, I'm going to go into Bitly. I'm going to paste my link in. And it's going to shorten it. Boom, done. So you can see right away here, this is where I can edit it if I'd like to. I'm going to do it as Test Nickerson. It's not much shorter, but then I won't get it confused later on. Pretty sure nobody has that one. I can share it on over Facebook or Twitter or so forth. And if I want to go in and view my stats, this is where I'm going to find that QR code. So you might want to remember that. It's kind of in a tricky location. And yeah, there it is. It's really small. As soon as somebody started using that short URL, it's going to track the clicks that I get, which is kind of nice to see if students are accessing the QR codes. If I only get 5 clicks, maybe I should find something more interesting or just drop that one. So let's click on the QR code here. It was automatically generated, which is excellent. Then all that's necessary is for me to either save that image to my computer so that I can use it, print it, or maybe copy the image or copy the image URL so that I can put it into something that I need for digital copy. That's pretty much it with Bitly. Like I said, it's free and it does a great job, and the customization is what puts it above pretty much all the other URL shorteners. But my favorite is actually not Bitly, because I've kind of gotten away from making it custom. I make so many of them, I just kind of find it's not a big deal to make them custom. So instead, I use Google. Notice it's goo.gl. If you already have a Gmail account, you actually have a goo.gl account as well. So you'll notice I'm signed in to my account. And so if you go to the Google URL shortener, you can be signed in, and then it will keep track of the URLs that you shorten. So again, I'm going to paste in that same address. You're going to see the difference here. When it creates a short URL, I am not able to customize it. So these letters and numbers that follow the URL shortener, they're what it is. I cannot change that. But everything else is pretty much the same. If I go into the details section here, again, I can track my records, see what browsers, if anyone's referred to it. There's my QR code. I probably want a little bit bigger, so I'm going to go and click on it. And again, it's just a right click to save it to my computer or copy it in a format that I could use later. So that's the only disadvantage here is that there is no ability to customize, but I don't really think that's that big of a deal. It doesn't bother me that much. So now that you've kind of figured out how to do your URL shortener, we should probably talk really quick about how you read a URL as well. There are a lot of different URL readers, which is in the green column here. I think my favorite is Enigma. I like Enigma because it's very, very fast. Sometimes you don't even realize it scanned it because you barely pointed it at the QR code. It can read from a variety of angles. It's free, and it works on all types of devices, Android, iPhones, iPads, you name it. If that's not your favorite or you're looking for something else, I've also given you some references to some desktop versions that can run off of a web camera, as well as an extension for Chrome that you can add on and make a QR code quickly out of any page and read it as well. And then finally, for those Chromebook users, there's some online readers as well. WebQR works very well, so you can utilize the Chromebook's document camera or web camera, excuse me, and scan it from there. So I'm going to show you Enigma real quick so that you can kind of see what it looks like. I went ahead and brought it up in iTunes. It's free. This is the icon. Notice the spelling. You kind of need to know that because it makes it difficult to search for if you don't. When you bring up the Enigma screen on any device, it's going to bring up and open your camera, and it's as simple as pointing it at the QR code. It brings up the address, and most of the time it says, do you want to go to this address online? The answer is yes. And it's going to point you in the correct direction and take you there within, maybe 1 or 2 seconds. It's really fast. So we've talked about where we get our videos. We've talked about referencing and finding some reading that goes along with it, how to make a short URL, and how to read that URL. So now let's take a second and let's go into the actual document that we're going to use to create the reading for my content area. We're going to go back up on my note sheet to where it says Scientific Reading Worksheet. I'm going to go up and open this one up, and I'm going to show you an example first. So here's an example on stem cell research that I would use during our unit on cells. You could use it in my anatomy class when we talk about death. We have a unit on death, and you can use it in a lot of different things. I think this would be a good one even for a government class, and it's not for government. You can see my formatting is a little bit off here, but that's an easy fix. I basically have created a template that I use over and over so the students become familiar with it. And the template includes the basic things like name, period. It includes what I expect them to do or any special instructions. It has a location for where I can put the QR code and the information about the article that we're going to read that goes with it. So my formatting is really messed up. Here looking, we've got the questions. I try to stick to 7 questions. We go from some shorter answer questions that are simple, what are stem cells, where are they found, up to more complex questions like, it's controversial, do you support or oppose it, state your opinion, and why. And amazingly enough, students who complain about reading and writing in a lot of other areas do not complain about doing these QR articles. When I survey my classes at the end of the year, it's always one of the top things picked that we do during the year. They really like reading about the current science topics and discussing them and thinking about them. So I think it's well worth the time to do this. Let's go back and take a look at the actual template that I used to create this. So I've made this template public. If you have a Google account and Drive, you can go up to the File button and pull down to make a copy. Please just make a copy. If you start editing mine, I've left it completely open so that people have the easiest way to get in here and make a copy. Then you're going to mess it up. So make a copy, please, otherwise I'm going to have to close it up. So here's my template. I started it so I can find it easy in my folder. You can see I've got most of the stuff pre-typed in here. If I was going to make my new one on water, I would also go through this process of file, make a copy so that I keep my original. I would rename it. I'm going to go into water. I tried to make a little bit more unique titles. That's not great, but I'm going to go ahead and call it that. So you'll see I still have my original template here, and now I have my one that I just renamed. You can the renaming sections up on the top here. If you're wondering how I created this object in here, I inserted it with a drawing out of Google Drawing. You certainly wouldn't have to have this if you want. I'm just trying to make it a little bit more exciting to look at. So I'm going to re-put the title here. Oops. Type that in. And now it's time for me to put that QR code in. So let's go through the steps here. we're going to show the video in class, so that's not something they're going to watch because I don't want to take up a lot of bandwidth with all of them watching that video on their iPads. We're going to watch that as a group. So the first thing I'm going to send them to is going to be the How the Water Works. So I'm going to copy that URL. I'm going to take it into my shortener, and I'm going to go ahead and use my Google one. I'm going to paste it in and shorten that URL. I'm going to go ahead and grab this actual short URL here, and I'm going to put that in my first part here in case there's a student that, like, maybe I need to send this home with them and they don't have the ability to do a QR reader at home. Then I'm going to go back into my details, and I'm going to grab the biggest version of my QR code I can. I'm going to just go ahead and copy this image. You could copy image URL as well. It kind of works the same. I'm going to paste it in. It's perfect size. And then I'm going to go back here and I'm going to just really quick go, all right, I got How Water Works by Shauna Freeman. So a lot of cut and pasting, which is part of using the internet. I'm going to put that on there as well. All right, I need to do a little bit of formatting, wrap my text around so I'm not taking up quite as much room. Some things we might need to move around here to make it fit a little bit better, but that's easy stuff we can mess with later. So I've went ahead and already done this, and I've created a document that I already have some questions on. So I'm going to show you that really quick here so you can see. Oops, I grabbed the wrong one. I'm going to pause it for a second so I can open that up. So here we are inside of my Google Drive, and I keep as much as I can in my Google Drive. And I'm in my biology folder, and I've opened up here, and I've got my folder that has scientific reading. I've actually made this folder public for you, so if you'd like to take a look at some of my other QR reading assignments, I've made that as a public folder so you can go in and take a look and make copies of those as well. And just like you copy my stuff, I think I've copied some other people's stuff too. You look at other people who've made really good worksheets and you're like, I like those questions, I'm going to use that. I think that's okay. That's kind of where we are for teaching right now. I credit them where I can, and others I just, I look at it as, I'm borrowing questions from like I would from a textbook. So here's a few of the ones that I have. Disappearing bees, don't mind the spelling, I type fast. Bacteria, protists, diffusion osmosis, DNA, theories of evolution, you name it. Let's go down to this one that I created for this on properties of water. So I called this Amazing H2O so I could keep the difference. I still need to add that QR code into this one. I just wanted to show you the questions that I had. So I basically took the article and I went through and I found some lower level questions from the very first page that the students could answer quickly, mostly vocab questions or facts questions. And then I went in and I continued into some other areas. And then because I have How Stuff Works has multiple pages, I'm actually going to send them to a couple more pages on this website. So one of them says go to page 2. So I can go back onto here and I can have the students navigate to page 2. And then I'm going to have them interpret this drawing. So they're not even going to read this on the side here unless they need it for extra. I want them to interpret a drawing. Basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to mimic things that they're going to see in real life that they would have to interpret and quickly find information online. We can't expect our students to do well on standardized tests or in life if they don't read off of computers, because that's where the majority of their reading is probably going to come from in the future. We tend to just have them read off computers for test day, and it's a different experience reading off a computer than a book, so as well as interpreting drawings off a computer and pictures. So that's my question, is about this picture. I'm going to have them interpret it. Then we move on and I take them to a couple other pages. On my last section, I'm going to take them to a brand new article that they get to pick. So on page 9 of this How Stuff Works, and it's usually their last section. I'm going to go to 8 and I'm going to hit the keep reading. Here we go to 9. They have extension articles, so then I can let them pick one of the extension articles based upon water. I'm not going to do the earth or sun, but they could pick bottled water, acid rain, water slides, water blasters. Can someone die from too much drinking of water? I get that question every year, and so forth. So now the students have some buy-in because they're going to pick something that they're interested in. They're going to read about it real quick. It's 5 or 6 paragraphs. It's a good read, but it's not going to take them forever or be frustrating. And then they're going to write a summary, and then we share those summaries within small table groups. So they know there's some responsibility to gather new information for this article and sharing it out to others. So this is just one example. I don't follow the same format for all of them. If I open up, let me open up a couple others here. Human cell regeneration. This is a cool one on how a guy regenerated his own thumb from pig tissue. It's pretty cool. So on this one, for my last one here, I use another QR article to send him to a new QR code, excuse me, to send him to another article right at the end, because I thought that was going to be quicker. I can go here. Let's try another one. This Theories of Evolution. This is, I found, a great website that has some stuff on different theories and how they've changed over time. So this one, they're going to complete a timeline activity. And a lot of you may think, well, why are you having them use paper? Because these are worksheets that I'm creating, that I'm printing out. Why are you having them use paper when you have those iPads there? And for me, I want to be able to read these and have the students share them quickly, and I don't want to have the hassle of going back and forth between apps so much. The students often write much better on these worksheets than if I had to have them open up another Google Doc and put their answers into it and then send that Google Doc to me. I know there's a lot of things that will shortcut that, but I do think that there is a place for paper, and this is a great way to blend the paper with the technology and have the students read and write. It works out really well. So I like the paper. You could definitely set this up to be some type of template workshop online where the kids complete it, but I think you'd limit yourself in these kind of activities, like a timeline where you want kids to add on and maybe draw pictures and that kind of stuff. For me, it's the content for this part of it, not the technology. This is a content, and I'm just utilizing technology to get to the content. So those are just a few examples of some of the things that I use for this in class. We've went through quite a few parts here. What I'd like to do next is I'd like to give you some opportunities to try this out on your own. So the steps you're going to go through is you should open up a new Google document. You could do this with a presentation or Google Doc. Or if you'd like to, feel free to use my template to create I've done some of the work for you to create a worksheet that kind of mimics mine. Then you're going to find a website that you would like the students to read from. And it should have some pictures with it, it should be current, and it should be interesting. Go ahead and copy that URL. You'll take it into one of the QR generators, and let me make this bigger so you guys can see. There you go. And you're going to create your QR code and short URL. Then you put those back into your Google document, adding in instructions you want onto your page, and then I would encourage you to try downloading a QR reader onto your device or phone and scanning it to see that what it looks like on a mobile device, and you can share your work. Now, one thing to remember, since I'm creating these documents to not be shared digitally, I don't need to make this document public, because my students never actually get this paper or this Google Doc. They get it on paper. However, if you plan today on having them scanned to get to this document, you will need to maybe make it public if you're wanting to see this document as well. It'll still take the QR to where you need them to go, but remember those share settings in Google, because they can be frustrating if you forget about them. So I'm going to pause for a second here. I'm going to let you work on this, and then we're going to summarize it up in just a couple minutes. So I hope your investigation and trying out making your QR code and coming up with a great article that you want your students to read went well. I want to remind you a couple things. The timeline for this, most of the time my students can complete one of my reading activities with 7 questions, the last question being a little bit more in depth, in a 45 to 50-minute class period. I have had times where I ask them to read it several times before we ask the question, so don't feel like you have to lock into one time frame, but they do read it. It's amazing. They don't really skim it. Kids really read the articles well, especially if they're interesting. I also want you to know that out of all the things that I hear back from parents at parent-teacher conferences, or kids say that they remember in class, many of those items came from these QR reading assignments. And even several years later, kids will say, oh, I remember reading about that, and it made me wonder about this, and I talked about it with my parents, and the parents will say, well, yeah, we talked about it the entire dinner. And for me as a teacher of science, and I think of any subject area, I just truly don't believe that the facts that we teach kids are as important as giving them a love of their subject area. And for me, that's a love of science. And so this opens them up to brand new research. It opens them up to the future of maybe reading some of these things on their own and staying current and being part of an educated population of Americans and voters. So that's the reason I really like doing these, and the kids really like them, and I think it just has tremendous benefits for them understanding science, staying excited about science, and then in the background, me getting them to read more and write more, which is outstanding. So to finish up here, hopefully you had some success in making your QR code, finding something online you'd like students to read, opening up a Google Doc, and putting that QR code short URL along with some questions in that you can actually use in your classroom maybe tomorrow if you needed a lesson plan for next week. As we finish here, I have just one more thing I want to share you. If you are a science teacher, I would really encourage you to look on Facebook and Google Plus for some groups that are going to push you information, so you're not going to go out and have to find these articles as much on your own or what's happening in science. It's hard to stay updated on what's happening new in your field. So my favorite one is Science is Awesome. This is the clean version of their other site, which I'm not going to talk about, but you can look it up online if you want, which is little vulgar name, but this is a good site too. They push out all kinds of information about what's going on in science this week, new discoveries in science, and some of them it's just amazing. You wouldn't believe the things that are going on in science right now. So Science is Awesome is a great Facebook link. Online there's lots of different places you can go and find information about your field, and if you need to, you can use this QR method with historical documents, you can use it with videos, you name it, and it's going to work for you. It's just a really easy method to make your QR codes and your iPads work together as simple as possible. When you're done with today, if you'd like to, I'd really appreciate any feedback on this video or the training. You can get a hold of me at my webpage, which is right here, and I have a link to leaving me some feedback. I think it's a one-question link. I'll open up here. It's just what I need to do different. I'm really open to constructive criticism, and I appreciate your feedback. I'd like to thank you for joining us with the Aura VSD here at the Google Training and the Google Summit. And like I said, if you ever need to get a hold of me, my email is at the top here. Email me with your questions, and I will get back to you that day, because I think Google's awesome, and I'm loving the things that I can do in class with Google, QR codes, and making reading relative for my students. Thanks for joining me.